So we're doing the second half of the Perek, okay? We're holding on page Zayin, the line that says, Sharoyim b'muchash mamish v'kol zehu. It's the first side. Now, last week we had the first shiur, and I set it up, basically. I set it up, right? Basi Legani has 2 points. The mission is, Last Says Baruch B'Tachtenim, Aides Kavye V'Zhabche. Karbones, Shtos Deli Umud, Shtos Kedusha, and Sheker and Tekerish. Who does the mission? The Tzivos Hashem. Right? And the Rebbe is Medayik. Soldiers, not servants. Servants have Kabbalah Sale. But soldiers are ready for Mesiras Nefesh. That's the deal. Soldiers are ready for Mesiras Nefesh. The Tzivos Hashem. And then the Rebbe explains the nature of the war. That it's a Mechames Nitzachim. It's a war that you must win. And a Mechames Nitzachim, so the king, first of all, he personally involves himself in the war and doesn't leave it to his generals. Second of all, he dispenses of the treasure, which he hasn't even shown. And Alachas can become used for his and his parents for generations. When the war comes, he gives it away, b'shefa, with bizbuz. And the third thing is, Mashachai b'neged, he throws away his life. So the Frierdiker Rebbe's lashon is Mashachai b'neged. But in a number of my Mamer, the Rebbe is very careful about lashon ikiyas. The Rebbe says, Misaken es chayav. He puts himself into sakona. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes Mashachai b'neged. And there's plenty of places where the Rebbe said that lashon also. But in a number of my Mamer, the Rebbe changed it in our mind. He said, Misaken es not. He puts himself at risk. So the Rebbe then goes in to explain Lahava ina oitza lamad. That becomes the question. What is Eibishter's oitza? So to explain the Eibishter's oitza, you have a big arichis that lasts at least 5 parakim, maybe 6, to explain the tikkun ezer. Erein seif l'mayla adein kates l'mata adein tachlis. Erein seif means godliness, and l'mayla adein kates or l'mata tachlis means as high as you go, it's higher, and as low as you go, it's lower. And it's not the pshat that Erein seif has 2 parts, but the whole vart is, it's not like there's 2 halves. Ein Seif is one idea, and every point of Ein Seif is l'mayla adein kates l'mata adein tachlis. Ein Seif, by definition, has these 2 opposite characteristics always. So in Perek Yud Beis, the Rebbe explains what Ein Seif means. In Perek Yud Gimel and Yud Dalet, he explains Ein Seif l'mata adein tachlis. In Perek Tezvav, he's going to explain, that's next year's Perek, he's going to explain Ein Seif l'mayla adein kates. And in Perek Tezayin, he's going to tie them together. And I think in Perek Yud he goes back to Oitzer or something like that. It's a very big arichas. It's the longest single sugya in the Mamer. Basi Legani is this sugya of this tikkun ezer, Ein Seif l'mayla adein kates l'mata adein tachlis. So what's attached to Ein Seif l'mata adein tachlis? That you go into the deepest darkness, you find God. That's the part. You go into the deepest darkness, you find God. This is what the Rebbe spoke last year, Perek Yud Gimel. This year continues the conversation with one more kvetch. You go into the deepest darkness, you find godliness revealed. That's the chiddush of Yudalad over Gimel. So the Rebbe says in the Mamer, the Rebbe says, yeah, you need to have your own plate of pistachios. There's a mystical reason to have your own plate of pistachios. Then take some pistachios. So the difference between Perek Yud Gimel and Perek Yud Dalet, Perek Yud Gimel is in the deepest, darkest klippas the Eibishter exists, and Perek Yud Dalet that the Eibishter is revealed over. So in the shtika that we learned last week, we discussed the klippa part, right? There's one akudah that's so important to the Rebbe in this Mamer, that the worst klippa is man-made. The Eibishter made klippas. The Eibishter made klippas neiga, the Eibishter shosh b'meis legamre. When a yid does an aveda, it's even, he brings some tiny perich of dalet, it's even lower than shosh klippas at meis legamre. He says, of all the avedas, the worst aveda is when you use the Torah against itself, when you use the Torah itself for an aveda. And then Perek Yud Gimel, the Frierdiker Rebbe brings it, and in the Mamer from Chav Gimel, from last year, the Rebbe developed this idea that the lowest aveda is the aveda of using the Torah against the Torah itself. So this was more or less last week's class, to talk about this idea that me kanere aim at beit kinim in the lowest klippa, Eibush is everywhere. Eibush is everywhere. But one kvetch I want to add to be positive, which is that the Rebbe brings the idea of she'oil. She'oil means the abyss. She'oil means Gehenim. She'oil, the Rebbe says, is a klippa connected to avedas. A person does do an avedas, there's no she'oil. So she'oil represents those avedas which are klippas, or even lower than the klippas klayach which the Eibishter created. And Chana says, Moirid she'oil vayal. That the Eibishter brings the person into the she'oil so that he should go up. So the Rebbe says, even if a person is in such a low klippa, that it's a klipa which Klayachal the Eibishter didn't invent, and man invented, and therefore he ends up in Sha'il. It's not only that the Eibishter takes him out of the Sha'il, but that's why the Eibishter created that possibility. The Eibishter created that possibility for you to fall so low because of the Yirida Tzei Chalir. Made a Sha'il Vayah. That even if you're in a klipa that you yourself created, the reason the Eibishter allows you to be in such a Mamer D'Matzav is Made Sha'il, so there should be the Vayah. This is what the Rebbe said last week. But bear in mind, the big point of the Perek is this idea that not only is Elokus everywhere, even in Klipa, but Elokus is revealed everywhere. Wherever you look, you can find the Eibishter. That's the Nekudas Ador. So we begin on page Zayin, the line that begins with the word Sheroyim. I'm going to guesstimate it's 9 lines at the bottom of the page. V'kol zehu, this phenomena, that godliness is found everywhere, even in the lowest Klipas. That the godliness in the lowest klipas, if you look closely, you could see it. Is lefisha aid who ain't safe b'etzem. Since godliness is ain't safe on a level of etzem, in other words, it's godliness not just because it's relationship to the Eibishter. It's godliness because it itself is godly. I mean, the big shaila the Chassidus always talks, right? Is it oyer ain't safe or oyer shell ain't safe? And Chassidus says it's both. Ain't safe is the Eibishter. But because of the relationship between Eid and the Eibishter, the Eid is ain't safe by itself. Eid ain't safe be'etzem. That godliness, its status as a godly truth, as being an expression of the Eibishter, is what it is by definition. The second halaluka is Hali Nafshi Hashem. Right? So you learn Havaya B'chaya goes on the neshama. Zamakai Be'edi goes on the guf. And then you say some really practical stuff. It's a bad idea to trust people. Yeah, you can trust people. You're going to buy into some guy. You're going to believe in some politician, and you're going to put all your eggs into his basket, and then he's going to drop that. Finished. So trust the Eibishter. Right? What's the most important words in this kapitel? I'm going to tell you, okay, because I want my version to be the winner. I'm sure you have your own version. To me, the most important words in this kapitel is Hashemer emes le'elam. The Eibishter makes sure that an elam is sheker da bisel emes. Hashemer emes le'elam. What's the bisel emes? Eisem mishpat la'shukim. Neisen lechem reivim. Every time a person does a favor for another Jew, that's an expression of Hashemer emes le'elam. So you're going to tell me that godliness is concealed? The Eibishter makes sure that in the world that's whole material is sheker. There's emes. There's a roiv and somebody gives him a little food. There's a tzama and someone gives him a little water. That's hidden, I'm asking you. It may not be the nusach of Vishnitz, but it's revealed.
We're not talking about in the world b'chlal. We're talking about in a davar which is showing itself as against the Eibishter.
Yeah, over there also.
People are striving to see that.
Over there also.
We can believe that there is a...
No. You see it. Anyway, kasha. The Gemara says kasha. But the fact of the matter is, I'm a vil that maybe not at all. That's the truth of the matter. Anyway, let's get to the Mamer, okay? V'kol zehu. This phenomenon that Ein Sof is lamata dein tachlis. And if you look correctly, you'll see him. Is lefishu ein safe b'etzem. What's the vart? What are we saying? The Eibishter is found in the lowest place because he's the highest Eibishter. That's why you have to teach this. Because he's ein safe b'etzem. The ein safe is of Elokus. We're not talking about the Eibishter. Right? Ein safe l'mayla dein ketz l'mata. That's not Hashem. It's Hashemliness. Getlichkeit is because godliness, its godliness is in a way of etzem. In other words, it's the highest possible madrega of being godly. This is why he's b'chol makam b'shavah. In other words, it's ironic. Because this madrega vein seif is so high, therefore he's found in the darkest places. Al kain, therefore, ein seif gam kain lis pashtuse. Because be'etzem it's ein seif, meaning to say the level of ein seif is completely higher than anything, any world, and therefore he's mispashat in every place. That even though there's ribe madregas v'ishtalshus, there's many steps and many chain reaction components to the creation. Ad lamata mata mamish, the lowest world's mamish, u'b'kol mokem shu nimshach, wherever it's drawn, u'mispashat, and wherever it radiates, two words, ein be spoilus and ein be shtanus klal. The Eibishterliness is not behispoilus, and the Eibishterliness is not behishtanas. I just want to say now that on the next page, at the end of the first line, you can have 1/3 lashon. Eine misadef, 3 lashonis. Okay, godliness is eine mispal, godness is eine mishtane, and on the top of the next page, the Rebbe is going to say that godness is eine misadef. Let me start with this. That the Rebbe brings that says in Chassidus that when the neshama goes into the guf, the neshama is affected by making it a guf. Is affected. What happens? The guf hurts, the neshama hurts. So the Rebbe says the neshama is also lakus. The neshama is also lakus. So this idea that because it's ein teiv be'etzim, it's eine be'espos, eine be'shtanos, is a chiddush. Because there is an alternative possibility that something which is godly should come into the world, notwithstanding how godly it is, it should be behispoilus, it should be behishtanas. So there's a chiddush. It could be that ain't safe, could be behispoilus and behishtanas like a neshama, as a name. You should know it's not. Godliness has a relation with every world, it's behispoilus and behishtanas. Now appreciate the dichotomy, appreciate the duality, the two sides. That the other side of this coin is ain't safe lamata adein tachlis. Godliness is present everywhere. Godliness is present everywhere in a way which is called his galos, however you translate that word, because its presence everywhere is an air from the belief that is pointless. Meaning, if the godliness would in any way adapt to the world in which it comes, that means the godliness would change. If the godliness would change, then it would not be ein seif b'yatzim. If the godliness would change and the godliness b'yatzim, then we don't know if it could be everywhere. So it's haba ha'talya. Because godliness is ein seif b'yatzim, and no matter where ein seif goes, it's an oif and a bli hispoilus and bli hishtanos. This allows for ein seif matad inachos. The way Elikus is found everywhere, and in everywhere his galus is because of this inyan that he's not mispal and he's not mishtan. Godliness never changes, always the same. Now let's translate these words. What does hispoilus mean? Hispoilus means to react. That's what hispoilus means. React. Someone pushes you, you fall over. That's a hispoilus. Someone makes a joke and you laugh. That's a hispoilus. Someone does something you don't like and you scream at him. That's a hispoilus. Hispoilus means a reaction, a reagirung, an upklang, giving back. Elikus is not mispol. Elikuk doesn't give back. Like the famous lashon, kol no misnaneya. If you move something else, you have to be moving yourself. Elikus is the exception to the rule. He's a no and he's not minaneya. The Eibishter moves, he's not moving. The Eibishter affects everything in creation. Godliness comes everywhere, and according to this Mamer, the godliness that comes everywhere is creating. He creates, himself creates, but he touches and he creates in the kind of way that he affects a change in us, but in him there's no change. And such his spirit doesn't react to us, doesn't react to us, and therefore there's no shinui. And he explains, it's in contrast to the neshama and the guf. That what? Haneshama, and the neshama is alakus. And if you learn the right maimorim, you could even say that the neshama is higher than Eir. You could say that the neshama is higher than Ein Seif. But whatever the neshama is, it does respond to the happenings in the body. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a chassaron in the neshama. It could be a mile in the neshama. But that's how the Eibishter made the neshama. The Eibishter made the neshama, what happens in the body, the neshama feels. It reacts. So then, is a raya, you could be godly, you could be a very high level of godliness, and the Eibishter brings you into the world in the kind of way that you're affected by the world you're in. But mele aval ha'era laki. It's a chiddush that even though if the Eibishter wanted it to be different, the way the Eibishter made it is that divine light, it's mechaya, it gives life, umahava, and it gives creation. Now, if you're here last week, we talked about these two l'shenis, mechaya and mahava. The Rebbe brings now the Rebbe al tikra mechaya el mahava. It's much easier to see that Hashem gives life to the world and to see that Hashem creates the world yesh me'ayim. So therefore, you first say mechaya and you then say mahava, even though the ikar chiddush that is the creator. Because when you understand mechaya and mechaya you could relate to, so after you see how Hashem gives you life, because you feel that you're alive, you can extrapolate backwards from havoy, from his chayis to havoy. That's how the Rebbe teaches al tikri. The pasuk says vata mechaya is called. That's the obvious truth. Al tikri, don't read mechaya, what you could see on the outside of mahava, there's something deeper. That's a cloud that the Rebbe gives in Al Tikri. The Pasuk says the more obvious thing, Al Tikri Banoyech, El Boy Noyech. In other words, you're not a Makaba from the Eibishter, which is Banoyech, the Eibishter's children. El Boy Noyech, you Mashpir the Eibishter. So first you say the obvious, and then comes the unobvious. And Al Derech Zeh, Al Tikri Machaya, El Mahave. So the Pasuk uses both Lashenis. Al Rebbe says, the Oyer Elaki is Machaya Mahave, which means you're talking about godliness that gets involved in the creation. He's not that hiding out. Godliness gets involved in the creation. How much so he gives chayas and havaya. In other words, it's mamish oyer pnimi, memalik kol ha'almin. And nevertheless, because it's ein safe be'etzem, even the way it's in the Metzias of memalik kol ha'almin, we'll talk about this later more, it's not behispoilus and it's not behishtanas. Okay? So, aval ha'oyer laki, even though it's ha'machaya u'mahavit, it gives life and it gives creation, Einim Ispol, Einim Ishtanakal doesn't react, and it's not changed by what it's involved with at all. The Rebbe brings in the Mamer Gimel Shitas. I don't know if you know this. There's a Mamer Tzamach called Drush Gimel Shitas. It's printed in Eira Teira in Yonim. It used to be printed in the Sefer, which you can't buy anymore, called Derech Mitzvesecha Chelik Sheni. Derech Mitzvesecha Chelik Sheni was just a smorgasbord of different Mamorim. The Rebbe writes that he used the name Derech Mitzvesecha Chelik Sheni because he wanted to avoid the censorship, the fees of the censorship in Soviet Russia, in Tsarist Russia. But it's not Derech Mitzvesecha, it's Mamorim. So the Gimel Shitas is printed over there. My brother has a copy of it. He found that they never reprinted it, and it's printed in Teira in Yonim. The Rebbe brings it a lot. In the first Mamer, the Rebbe brings it. It's a hard Mamer. It's a deep Mamer, and it's based on the Pardes. And I think it's based on Shadal. I think parts of it, Pasha copied the words of the Pardes and he wrote notes. I think. Gimel Shitas. It's 3 sheets about what the Sfiris are, or what Atzilus is. Okay. The most important thing you have to know is that we're the Shita Shlishis. And when you say we mean side the Pardes and side the Arizal. The Pardes and Arizal argue. But their arguments are so small that it's considered one Shita compared to the Shita Rishayna, compared to the Shita Shneya. The first 2 Shitas are Mekubalim who much before. The Arizal and the Pardes were 450 years ago, Anerech, yeah. Anerech, 450 years ago. And these Mekubalim are 700 years ago. So the way it works out is the first Shita is called Shitas Haramar. Ramar is the Menachem Irikanti, and it's also the Shita of the Maharal Miprag. If you know the Derech Mitzasecha, Hamanus Alakus, Peri Gimel Dal, he brings the Shita Maharal. It's the same Shita as the Ramar. The second Shita, so the Tzemach Tzedek brings from the Pardes the Radbaz, Reb David Ben Zimra, but it doesn't say in his forum. It's the Marechas Alakus. Basically, what it is SS is a major problem, you know. SS is a major problem. I thought we had one God. I thought we had one God. Kabbalists are very religious, right? They're very pious. They're more deeply connected to Hashem than me. I say, 10. Now you have to understand. You want to say the Zohar is a problem, Gesundheit, but the Sefer Yetzirah never disappeared. The Zohar was discovered 800 years ago, whatever it is, so people want to say whatever they want to say. But the Sefer Yetzirah starts with Eses Sfiris. Eses Sfiris, believe a Chokok, whatever, a whole bunch of Lashonis, the Eibishter made 10 Sfiris. So the people who study these in Yonim have it's a problem, it bothers them. You even have a Pirush from the Rasaga and Sefer Yetzirah. Rasaga was a Choykir, it wasn't a Mekubal. But the Sefer Yetzirah everybody had. The Sefer Yetzirah is Mishtayas. On the Aces, on the olive base, but it's Esed. So they're bothered. What's this matter with Esed? What's Esed? So they took extremes. I've looked through this many times. I can't say I ever learned it well, but my memory doesn't work anymore, and it's been many years. I learned the part of the Drush Gimel Shitas which is negated to the Rebbe's Mamer. The Rebbe brings the Shita Shniya in the Mamer. But basically what ends up happening is, and I'm saying basically with advisement, I don't know it, I know it Beklalos, they're worrying about the idea of 10 when it comes to the Eibishter. So the first Shita says basically that the Eses Sfiris are like Malachim. They're the tools of creation, but they're not part of the Eibishter at all. They're completely outside, like Bria almost. I don't know more about it, but that's basically the sheet. That's why the Maharal gets upset at the Rambams, who are Yedeyan, who are Yedu, and who are Mada, because he holds that in the Eibishter you can't say Midas. You can only say Midas outside the Eibishter. The second sheet is the other extreme. The second sheet puts that the Eibishter ain't safe, finished. Right? What does ain't safe mean? He can do whatever he wants. If he can do whatever he wants, he can do Eser also, if he did Eser. Simple. So there's not really Atzilus. Like we understand Atzilus, Eser Kelim and Eser Oides. The Eibishter is Akel Yochel. And part of the Pshitas of Ein Safe allows him to do anything, so he's doing 10. But he can do 12, he can do 8, he can do 19. He's doing 10. But the 10 are not actual things. There's no such thing. In other words, the second Shita's notion of Atzilus is Maitzel. It's what we understand Ein Safe to be B'etzem. There's no real concept of Kelim. The third Shita is Kabbalah, is Chassidut. He says the Pardes and Arizal. They say, no, there's Kelim and there's Oyer. And the Oyer is Ha'oretz. It's a lower level of Oyer. In other words, it could even be that Atzilus is Gvul. It could for sure be that Atzilus is Koyach HaGvul. We don't agree with the Shita Shniya that the Spheres are part of the Pshitas of Elokus. And they somehow, they work it out that there could be Eser, and it's not a Stira to Achdus, because they explain that Elokus could be B'Metzias. That's basically the third Shita. Elokus can be B'Metzias. The first Shita pushes the Spheres very low. The second Shita makes the Spheres part of Pshitas Ha'atzmus, which basically the Spheres don't exist. And our Shita, the Shita Shlishis, explains, no, there's Kelim. The Kelim are Elokus themselves. There's Oyer, there's Misabish and the Kelim. They're Elokus and they're Gvul. In other words, they're Chas v'Shalom, a separate thing from the Eibishter, but at the same time, what the Alter Rebbe calls in his letter, Alter Rebbe, when he had to defend himself in prison, explains the Esespheres. He calls them lights. Lights from the Eibishter. Lights from the Eibishter have impact on the world. So the way Maimorei Chassidus work is, we hold like the Shita Shlishis. But we try to take every mile from all three Shitas. In other words, when it's the most difficult case, you bring the Shita Shniya. In other words, you bring all three Shitas. You want to make everybody right. So the extreme Metzias of Shita Rishayna, and the extreme not Metzias of the Shita Shniya, with the whatever middle, the Shita, we make them all into one big chunk. We want to make everybody right. The way we understand that Tzilus, even though it's a third Shita, should work also the Shita Shniya, and also the Shita Rishayna, and also the Shita Shlishas. So on this shtickle, the Rebbe brings the Shita Shniya. When he's explained it, Elikus ain't Seif B'Yetzem, and there's no his spoilers, and there's no his shtana, so he brings the Shita Shniya.
When we say regarding Atzilus, Iyu L'Chayei Echad, Iyu V'Gomay Echad, so that's the idea of it. Is that similar to Shita Shniya?
No. Well, you see, Iyu V'Chayei Echad, Iyu V'Gomay Echad is in Zohar. Is in Zohar. So all three Shitas have to explain it. Each one is going to explain it L'Shita Soy. Each Shita is going to take the same words and explain it to work according to him. They're worried about Achdus. They're not worried about the Zohar. They're worried about Achdus. Ein Neid Muvad. That's how I said it's 10. So when you learn the Maimonim, they'll bring the Shita that's the most uncomfortable and say, we got to make it work according to the Shita also. So when the Rebbe is trying to explain this Vart, that Ein is Ein Seif Be'etzem, we bring the Shita Shniya. What's the Shita Shniya? That there's really no such thing as Atzilus. The Shita Shniya says that Atzilus is part of Pshitas of Elokus. It's never then, since Eibush should do whatever he wants, if he wants, it could be 10, so his Pshitus radiates in a way of 10. So in a different Mamer, they'll bring the Shita Rishayna, make Atzilus into a real Metzias, Ochanvei, the Achdus. But here he brings the Shita Shniya. You want to understand what it means. That Ein Seif, L'mayla the case, because it's Ein Seif Be'etzem, studied the Shita Shniya, the Rebbe says. Of all the three Shitas Nesesfidas, the Shita whose Esesfidas is the least Metzias is the Shita Shniya. Use the Shita Shniya to understand what it means that Elokus Ein Seif Be'etzem. We don't agree, yeah? But we want to make what we hold be consistent with those Shitas also. In other words, even though we hold that Atzilus is a Metzias, and it's a Keich, a Gvul, or a Gvul, we want it to work with the Shita Shniya also. How? For right now, I don't know. But the Rebbe wants us to explain it ain't safe. Be'etzem, by bringing the Shita Shniya, who Bechlal does not have a real idea of an Atzilus. Atzilus is Eidos V'Kelim. It's part of Maitzos, part of the Etzem of Elokus. And since the Eibishter creates the world with this Ein Seif, so even though this Ein Seif is Machaya, And even though this ain't safe, it's mahava. And even though this ain't safe, goes b'chol makom. There's beli hispailus and beli shina. It doesn't change at all. It's not affected by it. It affects the whole world, but it affects the world without being affected. Why? Because it's ein tzei be'etzem, it could be everywhere. Because it's ein tzei be'etzem, it could be everywhere in such a way that nothing changes it. And that explains ein tzei l'mata adin tachlis. Not like a neshama. That when the neshama goes into the guf changes it. Ein tzei is not like that. That's what the Rebbe does. Come up with the most extreme understanding of Esesfiris and help it to explain his ABS. That's what the Rebbe does. Questions or comments?
It doesn't make any shnuim because it's what?
It doesn't really relate by coming close. Our Atzilus comes close. It goes into Caleb. It gets involved in the world, but it doesn't come close. It remains what it is.
Where do you see that he's using that shit?
Right here.
Oh.
Was meinst du? I'm making it up. Was meinst du? Ich hab zugegrät. I took out the Mamer. Ich hab sie gelernt heute bei Nacht. Let's keep reading. If you want to speak, you're welcome to speak. Otherwise, we're going to keep on reading. And he says, we do find a concept as a shini and oid. Just when oid goes into keli, we do have a concept in Hasidus where the light is affected, it changed. V'hainu, masha islaptus, because the air goes into the keli in a way that's revealed in the keli. And when the light goes into the keli, revealed in the keli changes the light. That's what revealed means. Poyel eze shino, it affects a change in the oil. And for the Rebbe, hurak, b'hachayis, shebebchinas koyach. It's only in the madrega of life which is called koyach. There's a madrega called oir, there's a madrega called chayis, and there's a madrega called koyach. And this sugya, oir, chayis, and koyach, dominates the Mamer from Tafshin Mem Dalet, the second time around. Oir, chayis, and koyach. And the Rebbe says, oir, chayis are begilui, they reveal the Eibishter, beli shina, beli hispailus. But koyach could be b'shina and could be b'hispailus. Why? V'yadua, it is known, the chayis shu bebchinas koyach, the level of chayis which is called koyach, who may ha kelim, the biyah is only from kelim. The kelim, the biyah harei b'chinas metzias. The kelim, the biyah are metzias, they're not even alakus. Ukadizu because the kelim hanas as in Tanya. The reish, the yesh, the kelim, the biyah. So the oil, which is bebchinas koyach, meaning the oil that went into the kelim, shayach bahem, in that oil is shayach hashinoi v'hayispailos, a change and a reactionary effect. Turn to page chas. Avo ba'eir hamachai, the light that gives life. And really, when you say eir hamachai, you're really saying two words. Eir chayis, ein beishum shini v'hispailos, doesn't change and doesn't react to the world at all. So I want to teach this for you. I want you to understand what this means. I want to explain to you what this means. Okay, and I'll start from the end of the story. The end of the story is that we're the Shita Shlishas, right? We're not the Shita Shnia, we're the Shlita Shlishas. We're walking between the raindrops. The Shita Shlishas holds that there's real Kalim, and the oil really goes into the Kali. And we use the word Ha'ara. We don't believe that oil is Atzmus, the oil is Tzimtzumt. We don't agree with the Shita Shnia, but it's nevertheless a Lakus, okay? So when Hasidus talks about oil going into Kalim, there's two Meshalim. When oil goes into Kalim, there's two Meshalim. The marshal of the Shita Paz is Pshutim, and the marshal of the Shita of the Arizal, which is Eres Metziyarim. What's the marshal of the Arizal? Neshama and Guf. The same thing that I'm telling the previous page. When the Neshama goes to the Guf, it's changed, yeah? So the marshal for oil and Kelim in Atzilus is like Chayis. The Chayis and Nefesh going into the Guf. Now, how are you going to reconcile that with the fact that the Rebbe just said that Chayis doesn't change, only Chayis changes, is a different discussion. But that's the marshal of the Arizal. What's the marshal of the Padis? There's two mashal of the Padis. It's considered one mashal, but it's really two mashal. One mashal is if you put water into a colored glass. When you put water into a colored glass, the water is still clear, but the color of the water is based on the glass that it's sitting in, right? If you take it out of that glass, put it to a different glass, it'll be a different color, yeah. That mashal is simple, yeah. Yeah, of course, in Padis. But then there's a second mashal. You put light into a colored glass. When you put light into a colored glass, what happens to the light?
Like a red light.
Ask any physicist. Ask any physicist. They'll tell you the light changes. And there's a simple ayah. based on the color of the glass will be hotter or less hot. If you have a clear glass and the light goes through the glass is not going to get hot. Why? Because all the light goes through. But the fact of the matter is, depending on the color, the glass will be a higher temperature. Why? Because the glass literally holds some of the light. But the Chassidus doesn't agree with that. Chassidus says that the fact is, you take light, put it through a colored glass, pull it out on the opposite side, it's still the same light.
The light is the same light. I mean, the aura is the same aura. The nukuda is that the aura is being changed only through... The aura is still staying the same. That's the nukuda, isn't it?
Rabbi Wolf, I'm asking you a question. This is Brooklyn. When you have a red bulb, and the light comes out to the red bulb, yeah? That light is red or white?
No, so it's the light when you see it is red.
Okay, what is it really?
It's really pasha, the same...
So physics says that that's not true.
Vary the color aside for that one.
Physics says that the other colors are gone. If you take that red light, put it into a blue glass, you know what you're going to get? Black. Because the blue was already taken out by the red.
Oh, come on.
No, it's true.
Yeah. Not only that, if you want to hear a science experiment,
Let's do it next week.
Take a fan, put every color on it, spin it really fast, and watch what happens to the color.
When you put light through a colored glass, the glass changes the light. It changes it. But Chassidus says no. Chassidus says no. Chassidus says the light is exact. Somebody asked me, is there an explanation of physics? I think there is. But the Chassidus says when you put light through a colored glass and you see red, the light is still the same. Your perception has changed. Chassidus is going to say that after it went through the colored glass, it's still white, except you're seeing red, which is what you said. If this bulb was red, and red light came into this room,
The
and
bulbs
then
are red. There's a cover that's red.
right, and when the light goes through the
It
red,
looks like it's red.
it's not just looks like a red. The glass absorbs the wavelengths; it holds them back, and the only color that it doesn't let through is red. Actually, all the other colors come through, so that's why you perceive it as red. Meaning, there's less energy in that light after it went through the glass than before. So if you put it through a second glass, you can't get back the original white. It's gone. That's the physics. I'm just telling you. I don't want to argue about it.
Okay.
Because the Mamer is saying exactly what you're saying.
Which is
That when
similar to
you,
the water.
right, exactly. When you put light through a prism, according to Chassidus, the light is exactly the same after it went through the prism. And I think you can argue this in physical, so I really do. If you put light through a prism, after it goes through a prism, it's exactly the same as before, except that your perception has changed. Which means as follows. According to Chassidus,
Chesed and the Keli of Chesed is the exact same light as the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei has a vaya, but we just perceive it different. Nothing's changed.
so again, we're talking Shittas HaPardis, and the answer is yes. According to Shittas HaPardis, Eid is Pashut. So there's no different Eidos. According to Eidos Mitzvah, that's a whole different question. But according to Shittas HaPardis, the Eidos ain't safe. It's one Eid.
That's what we learned.
And when you put it to a different kelim, it takes on the gavin of that kelim. After it went to that gavin, you can put it to a second kelim, it'll take on the second gavin because it didn't really take on the color.
That's what he explained.
Yes,
when we
yes,
daven.
yes,
So we change.
yes.
So the Hiratza means you move it to this. You're
Yes,
not changing that.
yes, correct. That's how Chassidus understands it. Chassidus holds that when you put a light through a prism and it changes a color, it didn't really change. Your perception changed. On this basis, Chassidus is going to say, and it really comes down to three levels, not two. Oir, Chayis, Koyach. Oir is Sevav Kalaman. Chayis is Mamalik Kalaman. Koyach is light that's been changed by Keli. In other words, Mamalik Kalaman means the light that's going to go into a Keli. Koyach means the light that came out of a Keli. It's three levels. Chassidus is going to tell you that when Oir changes into Chayis, it didn't really change. Your perception changed. When Chayis changes into Koyach, it also didn't really change. Its perception changed. That means there's a concept of godliness which changes. Which concept of godliness changes? The concept that we call Koyach. What does Koyach mean? Koyach doesn't mean a different Oir. It means that part of the Oir that you perceive as Koyach. Koyach is really Oir. Koyach is really Oir. Before it went to the Keli, it was white. After it goes into the keli, you're seeing a color, but we're saying that you're seeing a color, it's your perception. If you would see the truth, you would still see that it's white, that your perception is different. The whole concept of change in oir is your perception of the oir. Or the Lashon Chassidus is a oir shel hakeli. The light of the vessel is called koyach. The light of the vessel is changed. Now, the light of the vessel came from light. And it came through the vessel. So a light that came to the vessel remains what it was before. You don't see it. The light that came to the vessel, which somehow the vessel allows you to see it differently, this is where the shinui is. But understand that the shinui is only in your perception. Because since oil doesn't really change, koyach isn't really a separate thing. Koyach is oil that's been changed to us. Because if we would see for koyach what it is, it's just like Chassidus says, when you put light through a colored prism, the light is really still white. When you put ein seif into a keli and it becomes koyach, it's really ein seif, but you're perceiving koyach. In other words, the whole change is based on your perception. The definition of the word koyach is godliness as we see it in a limited way. But the truth of that matter is, the godliness which we're seeing in a limited way is really the same godliness. It's just that it looks to you that is different. In as much as it looks to you that is different, there could be a shinui.
And a malakal amen?
So a malakal, before it goes into the keli, chayes is not like that, right? Just koyach.
There's also a kli.
No, malakal before it went into the keli. It's
Oh,
muksha to go
it's
into. It's muksha to go into the keli, right? And especially in Chitas Apardis, who holds Eres Mitziyadim, we're not even sure what's the difference between Malay and Seviv before it goes into the keli. Oir, chayes, koyach. Koyach means when it came out of the keli. Chayes means when it's going to go into the keli. Oir means it has no shayches. Right. Correct. So the point is that Rebbe brings here that oil never changes. Now the way we explain that oil never changes, we take a radical view, we connect it to Shita Shniya, which isn't even our Shita. We connect it to an idea, a Shita that holds that Ein Sof is always in a state of Atzmos. And we say that's such Ein Sof is Ein Sof B'Yetzem. And therefore, even though it creates us, and it gives us life, and it gets involved, it doesn't get involved at all. No Shinoi, no spoilers. Where is there a change? Oyer Shalakli. The fact that it went into the Keli, and it came out of the Keli in a way that we're perceiving is different. In as much as our perception is different, there's a Shinoi. But since it's only in our perception, in Amitas Hanyanim, even Koyach is not a Shinoi. The Shinoi is based on the Shinoi in our perception. That's it. That's all. So oil creates us. Oil gives us life. Oil gets involved in everything, and including the lowest klippas, and it's called Ein Seif B'Yetzem. It's completely, as much as it's involved, it's completely disinvolved. Okay?
It's all how we look at things.
Right, right. The change is only what we see. Right? And therefore, Ein Seif Nimtza L'Maylich. The Frierdiker is saying, you know why godness is everywhere? Because godness gets involved in everybody's business. And nobody's business touches godliness. That's why godness is there. That's the word. But then the Rabbi continues. Page Ches, first line. Lefi she'eini mesadef. You know why? And the way the Rebbe does it in the Mamer, he divides it up into two sections. He says, first of all, you should know that Ein Seif is B'Yetzem. And because Ein Seif is B'Yetzem, as much as it's involved, it's not Mishtana and it's not Mispol. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, there's a beautiful Pedic in the middle. The Rebbe has Rachmanos Anos. It's a very Haskaladik Mamer. Chavdal is a very hard Mamer. He shows it and he throws you a bone, two Gishmak Prakim, where you have an avoid this idea of Einim Mispol, Einim Mishtana. We have in life, Einim Mispol, Einim Mishtana. So he gives the example from Yosef HaTzadik. That Vayovei Abai Salasis Malachte, the different Yosef and his brothers. Yosef was the Vizier Mitzrayim. He was deeply, deeply involved in all the Inyanim of Mitzrayim. And it's not the pshat he was misgabbed over it. It wasn't Tefes Mokum. It didn't matter to him. But Yosef, it made no difference. Yosef was in a Maimed Matzav and Mayached Yechudim. The fact that he was in Ervas Ha'oretz and involved with the lowest people and governing them and living their lives and supporting the king, whatever he was involved with, it went straight over his head. You want a moshel and avoida, how you could be deeply involved. Und es riert nicht an. As Yosef Mitzrayim. Or the Rebbe in the Sorbonne. It's a Zelba Moshel. Which basically means you're not Yosef HaTzadik, you're not the Rebbe, stay away from the Sorbonne. Finished. And the Telnach HaGeshmak HaMaiseh, in a Madrega, which is a lot closer to us, the da safe of us haste Yisrael Necha Godel. It's by Yisrael Nech Bliniski. So Yisrael Nech Godel, it's a biography of his. So there's a story that he was in the first Tmimim. So Nech was born in Mem Gimel. Mem Gimel. When Temchat Tmimim started, he was 14. So within 6-7 years of Temchat Tmimim, he was married already. He was in the first Tmimim. He was graduating in Samach Vav. He was finishing already. He was 23 years old in Samach Vav. He was a Ish Ruchni B'Yosef. He was a Ruchni Yizdika man. I don't know if you know, there's a letter someone sent me today in the mail. A Ksavet Kedesh to the Rebbe. It was written to Yisrael Neach. Yisrael Neach writes to the Rebbe, Ruchnius fällt uns nicht, Hadracha fällt uns nicht. And the Rebbe writes back to him, that's bold. Ruchnius fällt uns nicht, Hadracha fällt uns nicht. I'm telling you straight, mir fällt Ruchnius, mir fällt Hadracha. But Yisrael Neach wrote to the Rebbe. Yeah, of course. It was 3 months after Yud Shvat. He also writes, Vayamed Hashem.
Very old then. You have to be pretty old, but he was.
Yeah, but he lived another 30 years. The guy forgot to die. He went around twice. He passed away Mem Gimel. So, yeah, in Tavshin Yud, he was
Moshe, how old was he?
77 years old. Born Mem Gimel. 77 years old.
So
He lived till 100. No, he was 67. He lived till 99. It's Avec Mem Dalet. This is Tavshin Yud. In France, in Paris. He meant it, He meant it.
He's a real Jew.
And it's possible that it was true. A person should write to the Rebbe. He wrote Vayamed Hashem. That the Shemin is over. The Abashant was finished. And the Rebbe writes to him, Gimel Chadoshim, Gimel Ches Achare Yud Shvat, and a Shaibshin Vayamed Hashem. He told the Rebbe the Lubavitch is finished. Vayamed Hashem. That's what he wrote to the Rebbe. But in the letter, he also wrote to the Rebbe, Uns fällt nicht Hadracha, Uns fällt nicht Ruchnius. And the Rebbe said, I can't, I'm saying straight, mir fällt ja. The Rebbe writes to him.
What was the context? What was he trying to say?
I have no idea. It's hard to figure out. The bottom line is he was saying to the Rebbe that it's up to him. The Rebbe has to take the leadership. And so the Rebbe answers his point, and the Rebbe says to him, as far as I'm concerned, excuse me, I know me pretty good, that I know the Rebbe's Amatroy and so on and so forth. And the Rebbe writes to him, it's the Rebbe's Achrayas, and the Rebbe will take care. The Rebbe, the Shver's Achrayas, but he writes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's like shocked that he says it, but it could have been true. He wasn't shaykh as the guy, even cloud. He was an Ish Ruchni B'Yosef. What did he do for profession? He was a bookkeeper. In Brenois, he was the bookkeeper. He wasn't a mashpia, he was the bookkeeper. The guy was someplace floating between Akadel and Malbush, but he was the bookkeeper, the Bachalter. But Nissen was the mashpia. So Leach could have been his son. Aaron Yosef, Nech's older son, was almost the same age as Nissen. A year younger, 2 years younger. But Leach was born Mem Gimel. Nissen was born Samach Dalet. He was 20 years younger, 21 years. And the Bisholech used to sit by the Nissen Mafabrengen like a Eved Nis. He didn't open his mouth. For 30 years. With such a derech. He was the bookkeeper. The mashpia is a tzaddik, and the buchata a tzaddik gomer. So the Rebbe Rashab said about Yisrael Neach. Yisrael Neach sitzt in Buchhalterei und tracht die Chudei Allah. He was a genius with numbers, beteva. He became a bookkeeper because it was effortless for him. Yisrael Neach is sitting in the accounting office and he's thinking Chudei Allah. So, I'm not saying that that's the Madrega of a tzaddik. It's just a dogma. That's Kodev Lana, where the Friedrich says, the Rebbe says, you want a marshal for what it means that because it's in Tzei B'Yetzeb, it's B'chol Mokim, and there's Ein B'Shinin, Ein B'Yetzeb, spoilers, the marshal of Yosef HaTzadik in Mitzrayim. It's not the Pshat, he was stronger than it, had no Tfisas Mokim, didn't mean, did this. But then the Rebbe continues, and that's this word, Lefi She'eini Mesadev. Lefi She'eini Mesadev is a Tifa word, it's a very, very different word. And the Rebbe writes in his Mamer, what's wrong with Einei B'Shinin, Einei B'Spoilus? Why does the Friedrich have to add Einei Mesadev? So the Rebbe says, because since by a Neshama there is a Shina, and since by the Neshama there is a Hispoilus, the Rebbe has to say that by Al-Kus there's no Shin, no Hispoilus, because Einei Mesadev. Einei Mesadev means I'm not getting involved. What's your opinion about the tunnels? I'm not getting involved. Einei Mesadev. I just got involved. Einei Mesadev. Ich misch dich nicht. I'm not getting involved. But you have to understand how Chassidus explains Einei Mesadev. And this is interesting. So let me read now. Ukumesha Kosov, it says a pasuk in Shmuel. Ein Kodesh Kahavaya. Right? There's nobody holy like Shem Havaya. V'isa b'zeyer, it says in Zeyer, Kama Kadish and Inun. There's many madregas that are called Kedusha. But Leis Kodesh Kavaya, nobody is Kodesh like Havaya. Now I want you to tell me what this means. There's a lot of things that are holy. Holy means removed, separated from the world. But Havaya is unique. So if you look at the Maimonides, it's a sugya. Ein Kodesh, it's a sugya, you have to know how to place the Chassidus. The Chiddush of Ein Kodesh Kavaya is that it goes on Air Pnimi. Mamala Kalam. Ein Kodesh Kavaya means there's a madrega of Havaya which is Mislabish and Elamis. And even though it's Mislabish, it's Eini Misarif. So what's that Ein Kodesh Kavaya? That Sevel Kalaman is Kodesh Kapella, she's not getting involved. The madregas of Elokus which are higher than Elamis are also Kodesh. But not Kodesh Kavaya. Because only Havaya, which is Er Pnimi, Mamala Kalaman, is involved and not involved. That's the type of this Zohar. Kama Kaddish and Inun, there's many things that are Kaddish, but Ein Kaddish, there's no Kaddish of Hashem Havai gets involved in the world. And he gets involved in the world from their Pnimi. And even though he gets involved, it's not affected. He touches without being touched. So the Friedrich Rebbe couldn't just say what he said on the previous page, which are the facts. Ein spoils. He had to explain why. Because the Eibishter made the lakus in the kind of way that even when it's in a state of Islapshus, even when it's a state of Er Pnimi, it's always Kedusha. It doesn't mix. Let's do a little reading. Okay? The Kodesh Havaya, the holiness of Shem Havaya, and we mean before the Shem Havaya of Er Pnimi, which is because Malak Alaman, it's not like other things which are godliness, which are part of the order of the chain reaction of worlds, that are also holy. Why? Because Kaddishin, the Seder Ishtalshlus, normally, when something is called holy in Seder Ishtalshlus, is because it's Kaddish or Muvdal. Because it's holy and removed. In other words, Kedushasam, who, you know what makes them holy? She'enim b'ay mislapshus. If you stay away, you're holy. You're not involved. Zokter aber Avo, as opposed to Kasher mislapshim, every other Kedusha. You bring him to a place with Hepach HaKedusha, you see a change. All the other things, Kama Kedusha, Asach Zayin and Helik. You know why they're Helik? Because they live in Nam Yenim. But if you take those things which are holy because they're removed and bring them into this world, see what happens. Kasher Mislapshim, if that Kedusha would come into these worlds, it would be grabbed by the world. And Utvisa Peil Shinoi. If the world would hold it, affect a change. Zokter Masha Enkin Kadosh Havaya. There's a special Kedusha called Kol Havaya. And Havaya over here means Malak Alma. Shu Bechinas Eres Madrega Veir. Okay? The Eine Deim LaKadisha the Seder Ishtalshlus. It's different than other Kedushas that have two choices. Either stay Kaddish by staying away, or get involved and lose the Kedusha. Kaddish Kavaya is different. How is it different? Okay? Lefish Eine Mesadif. Because, where am I holding? V'hu ma'adeine mislabish, it's not mislabish. V'kasher babe islabshus. And Kaddish Havaya, even when it is revealed, eine bechinas tfisa. This Kaba ein Kaddish Havaya means it's a madrega of Havaya, which is an air pnimi. It's mislabish and elames, and the way it's mislabish is it touches and it's not touched. Lefish eine misarif, because it doesn't mix. And this, says the Rebbe, is the tam for before. The reason there's eine beishtanus and eine beispoilus is because there's a unique inyan of Eine Misarif. And Eine Misarif means I'm involved, it doesn't touch me. It's Rit Minishtan, it doesn't touch me. I'm involved. Two opposites together. And then he brings the mushal that I said to you before. Physical light. The mushal that we talked about before, now it's inside, yeah? Light that's down here in this world. That even though physical light is in the physical world, it doesn't get entangled. The mashal we said before, in your version, not in our version. The light that goes through a glass, that there's a red glass, Yeruka, there's a yellow or a green glass, Levana, there's a white glass, and in the footnote the Rebbe brings, that he brings red, yellow, and green, because red, yellow, and blue, because it goes in the three spheres of Chagas. And in the Mamer of Chavdal, the Rebbe brings it in the Teichen, in the Pnimit. This is the Ha'ara the Rebbe wrote in Tafshin Yud. Hamashal the Ha'ara the Eschuches Huva Bepardis, Umashe Tafas Aduma Yeruka Levana Hashem Shegimel Kavan. In the Mamer, the Rebbe repeated this Ha'ara the Rebbe wrote in 1950. In 1964, the Rebbe said it in the Mamer, the same idea, that a Duma Yeruka Levana is 3 kavod. Says the Rebbe, the Eshchalukah Baraselu, physically, when you put light into a red glass, it's red. Physically, you put glass into a yellow glass, it's yellow or green. Even after it goes through the glass and it takes on the color, it's not changed. That's the position that Rebbe holds about physical light. Physical light, he's talking on the mashal. It's about 10 lines of the page. Even though you put it through a blue glass and now you're seeing blue light, the light is really white, your perception is blue. It's what you're perceiving through the glass. Okay, but as far as the light is concerned, it's unchanged. And this mashal is the pshat and koyach on the previous page as well. Physical light, when it goes into the keli, and it's an even of a slapshus, meaning the glass changes it. The light is not really grasped, because in some way, even after it goes through the red filter and it becomes red light, it's actually still exactly the same white light. And the reason is lefi sheini misanev. So there's 2 points. The fact is eini mishtanev eini mispol. The siba is eini misanev. It means the Eibishter decided, I'm going to get involved in the world. I'm going to get my hands dirty and my hands are going to remain clean. There's a haskalah to this. It's called Pnimius HaKav. But the Eibishter decided he's going to be deeply involved in the world, in Eifem Pnimi, and it's going to be an Eifem in Kodesh Kavaya. And the Zohar says, so to be so involved and to be in Kodesh Kavaya is only Havaya, because that's how the Eibishter made it. Eini Mesarev. And the Rebbe finishes, just like in the muscle of physical light. Even after the light has changed colors, albeit the light is exactly the same. The same is true. The light and the life of Godness, which gives life. And of course, if you wanted, you could also add the word Hamahava that creates. Spoilers, which doesn't change at all. This is a double lashon, right? It's not affected and it doesn't change. Now, notice that he uses the word Oyer and Chayes, because the Rebbe says in the Mamer, Oyer and Chayes is Dveikus, Koyach is Nivdal, and the Rebbe explained that in Koyach there could be a Shinoi, but as I explained to you before how that works. The calls of who all this is, Lefi Shaheru Ein Seif Mamish, the Eir is Ein Seif Be'etzem, I'm sorry. Al-Kain, in other words, it's Shadish, it has nothing to do with anything, therefore, Hinegamis Pashtuse, as it radiates in the world, Hu B'Bchinas Ein Seif, it remains exactly what it was, unchanged, unfazed, unaffected, and revealed everywhere. Shenim Shach B'chol HaMadregas, comes to all steps, Ad HaMadrega, Yesa Achreina V'Etz Tachtenis, the lowest and the last and the lowest steps. K'mei Abruim, Yesa Shvel, V'Tachas, the very lowest creations, which means Klipa. U'B'kol Mokim Shunim Shach, and wherever it's drawn, Eini Mispol, it doesn't react, Ve'eini Mishtana, and it doesn't change. Okay? Because it's Eini Misanev. Okay? Finished. Then you have the Mamer of Dalet. The Mamer of Dalet is very different than the Mamer of Chof Dalet, because the Mamer of Dalet has a lot of points. Mamer of Dalet is one question. And the question is, doesn't it say in Tanya that the Eibishter creates the world with shame? This whole Maimon is predicated on the idea that the Eibush creates the world with oir. Mahave and Machaya with oir. Maybe oir achayis, but oir. So then what about shame? Shariach when it says shame. And it bothers the Rebbe. It's very interesting because the Rebbe in Bamdal is not explaining the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimon. He's challenging Friedrich Rebbe's Maimon. And the Rebbe's answer is, you have to say that even though this Maimon says that the Eibush that creates the world with oir, he really also creates the world with shame. Chachafil, the Friedrich Rebbe says that the Eibush does Mahave and Mechaya only with oir, and that oir is ain't safe nimtzal ma'ila adein kate or lamata adein tachlis, b'li shina, b'li spoilers and b'li sarvos. Says the Rebbe Ani Oimer in Tafshin Mem Daled, which is now 40 years ago. The Rebbe says you have to say that there's also the idea that the Eibush creates the world with shame. And
why is it a stira?
No, the Rebbe wants to know why the Friedrich Rebbe misses it. It's not a stira. The Friedrich Rebbe wants to understand why the Rebbe Zogazunzan wants to understand why the Friedrich Rebbe doesn't mean the Inyan Hashem. And part of the kasha is that shame is behelim, it's not begilah. So the Rebbe says, the truth is that it's not just true the Eibshter where the Oyer, there's also in Hashem. When it comes to shame, there's two inyanim. Shame's inyan is a koyach ne'elam. The way the name of a creation comes from the Eibshter. To the light of the creation is you don't see the Eibshter. You don't even see the name. A person's name doesn't tell you anything about him. You have two people with the same name and have very different personalities. Not because the name doesn't mean anything, because the place where the name sees, you don't see. So the Frierdiker Rebbe is talking about the Gilui. The Frierdiker Rebbe is talking about the Gilui. That's why he brings Oyer. So he wants to speak about the idea that Elokus is Begili B'chomor. So he brings Ein Seif L'mayla Den Ketz Amata Den Tachlis. But you should know this idea that Oyer or Ein Chayes is Mahava Machayes, also shame. But then the Rebbe goes deeper and says, our Mamer is interested in Gilui. Our Mamer is interested in Gilui. The whole point of Mamer is to say that even the lowest klippas, not only is Ein Seif present, but Ein Seif is present by his galus. So you have to say, says the Rebbe, that Seif calls Seif. Since the Inyan Oyer is to be Megale, that Seif calls Seif, not only is Oyer going to be Megale the Oyer, which it represents, it's going to make that the Inyan Hashem should also be by his galus. So the Rebbe challenges the Frierdiker Rebbe. He says, why don't you bring shame? It doesn't tie the difference what shame is. And you're saying, if you're what so he says, yeah. So the answer is, they're both, like you said, they're both true. So why did the Frierdiker Rebbe bring it? Because the Frierdiker Rebbe wants to bring the Inagilui. The Rebbe says, but it's really true that the Eibush is creating also through Shemus. And he says, but once you have the Inagilui, you have to say that the Gilui is not only be Megal, the Lukus of Oyer, which is Ha'ara, it's going to be Megal, the Lukus of Shem, which is Etzem. And he finishes the Maimah, he just like jumps, he segues into it. It's almost like he's saying, and this is a Hachana to Hashem Shalom B'Akisei Shalom. That the Eibush's name, in other words, Hashem Shalom means that even though the Inyan Hashem is even Helam, it should be B'His Galus. That's what the Rebbe does. He doesn't explain the Maimah. In Tavshin Mem Dal, the Rebbe doesn't explain the Maimah. He challenges the Maimah, which is unusual.
Does this fit, the concept of the Gamzul L'Torah fits into this as well? The idea that Elokus is Begili into the deepest levels of Klippas, is that also the idea of Gamzul L'Torah? That even in the Inyan which looks Hepech of Toiv, it's really Toiv, or not?
There's a difference between Hepech of Tev and Klippa. Klippa is Hepech, the Eibishter. You know, a guy sent me a letter. It really blows my mind how people are. They push it, have no common sense. There's no seichel.
That blows your mind?
It blows my mind.
I feel like that.
Intelligent people. He's learning with Tanya Chitas. So you learn whatever Pedic it is, Pedic Yud, that a tzaddik hates Ra. And you know, you heard in the shir what hatred is, you know. See, how could a tzaddik hate? I don't understand. How can a tzaddik hate? How can a tzaddik hate? So I'm thinking to myself, what stone does this guy live under? Did everybody punch you? What's a tzaddik hate? And I couldn't explain it to him. You can't give him to verstehen. Okay, he doesn't like, but hate is a bad word. I said, this you have to hate. This is evil. It's this hippie culture. A very intelligent man. He could not understand that it's right. If you're a righteous man, you hate evil, you have to. If you don't hate evil, you're almost supporting it. You can't verstehen. Gamzul Tev is not evil. It's a Helen, another course. Klippe is evil.
Well, so what does
it doesn't look evil, it's evil. It's evil. It's evil. No, if someone made Nachamish Gamzul's film puzzle. I'm not saying he wouldn't say Gamzul Teva, but it's not the same Gamzul Teva as sand in the box. Why? Just ungerid sein Alakus. Not his diamonds. And the Rebbe finishes, since Alakus is Pshitas B'yetzem, first it said Ein Seif B'yetzem. Now we're saying Pshitas B'yetzem. Al Kain Babaribu is Chalkas Badregas. It can be divided up into a million different ways, a million different forms. Beli Shir, Beli Gvul Klau, and at the same time it doesn't change at all. V'zehu Lamata Mat Adein Tachlis, Shu B'Ispashtis, Ubegili Ad Gam B'Madregas Eis Shvei L'B'Tachlis. Now wait, before you go, I just want to make one statement. The Rebbe finishes his mind by saying like this. The whole point of this sugya of Ein Seif L'mayla Din Ketz Matzah Din Tachas is explain Oitzer. What is the meaning of the word Oitzer? Yishlach Hashem es abracha ba'asamecha, something which is hidden. What's in of Oir? Gilui. So the Rebbe says Ein Seif Matzah Din Tachas is Gilui. Ein Seif L'mayla Din Ketz is a higher Gilui. Darf man sagen, as Oitzer is hecher not only than the inyan of Ein Seif L'mata Din Tachlis, but it's even higher than the inyan of Ein Seif L'mayla Din Ketz. That's what the Rebbe calls as the Mamer. L'hov inyan Oitzer. Ein Seif is not the Oitzer. Ein Seif is segueing to the Oitzer. Because Ein Seif is Gili. First L'mata Din Tachlis. And then at a higher level L'mata Din Ketz. And Oitzer is even higher than both.
The Oitzer is the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that he gives.
And it's Bizbaz Oitzers.
Just in